There is one question almost every man hears at some point, and the moment it's asked, most men don't realize they're standing at a crossroads. They think it's an innocent question. They think answering honestly will bring clarity. But in reality, this single moment often decides whether a woman feels desire or distance. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Men don't lose women because they say the wrong thing. They lose women because they answer from need instead of presence. When a woman asks, "What are we?" or "Where is this going?" she isn't always looking for a label. She's sensing your emotional center. She's testing whether you lead yourself or seek permission to exist. Stoic philosophy has warned men about this for over 2,000 years. Marcus Aurelius wrote that true power comes from self-command, not reaction. And nowhere is this more relevant than in moments of emotional pressure. This video is not about avoiding commitment. It's not about manipulation, and it's not about playing games. It's about understanding why certain answers collapse attraction, and how a Stoic man holds his frame without explaining himself. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the strongest men don't rush to define things, and why the man who stays centered is the one women remember. Psychology shift number 1. Why answering too fast destroys power. When a woman asks, "What are we?" most men feel an immediate pressure to respond. Their heart speeds up, their mind races, and before they realize it, they rush to give an answer, hoping clarity will bring security. But here's the first psychological shift you must understand. Speed is not strength. The moment you answer too fast, you reveal something subtle but damaging, that you need the situation resolved more than she does. And in attraction, the person who needs certainty first is the one who loses leverage. From a Stoic perspective, this is a failure of self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." In this moment, the question itself is not the threat. Your reaction to it is. When you rush to define the relationship, you are not leading, you are reacting. You are not standing in your frame, you are stepping into hers. Female psychology responds strongly to emotional posture. A man who remains calm under pressure signals inner stability. A man who scrambles for the right answer signals uncertainty, even if his words sound confident. This is why answering too quickly often kills attraction, not because your answer is wrong, but because it comes from anxiety instead of presence. A Stoic man understands this instinctively. He doesn't fear silence, he doesn't fear ambiguity, and he certainly doesn't fear losing someone who requires him to abandon his center. Instead of rushing to explain, he pauses, he breathes, he lets the moment exist without trying to control it. That pause does something powerful. It shifts the emotional gravity back to him. Because in that silence, she feels something different. Not rejection, not avoidance, but grounded certainty. And once you understand this, you realize something important. The real danger was never the question. It was the impulse to answer from need. And that leads us naturally into the next shift, how a Stoic man responds without collapsing his frame. Psychology shift number 2. Why direct answers collapse your frame. After the initial pause, most men make a second mistake. They believe honesty means giving a direct answer. They think clarity will build trust. They think definition will create security. So they say things like, "We're exclusive," or "I see this going somewhere serious." But here's the shift you need to internalize. Direct answers don't create attraction, they collapse frame. When you answer her question in a way that seeks to satisfy her uncertainty, you silently communicate that her comfort now matters more than your direction. And the moment you prioritize reassurance over leadership, the balance tilts against you. Stoicism teaches that a man must never abandon his inner authority. Epictetus put it simply, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, don't sacrifice your center just to be liked in the moment. A direct answer sounds strong on the surface, but emotionally, it often signals dependency. It tells her you need her agreement to validate where things are going, and female psychology does not respond to men who seek permission. This is why Stoic men don't answer questions like this head-on. Not because they're evasive, but because they understand frame is more important than information. Instead of collapsing into her timeline, a grounded man reframes the situation. He might say, calmly and without tension, "We're two people getting to know each other. I'm enjoying how things unfold." Notice what that does. There's no apology, no defensiveness, no rush. The frame stays intact. He communicates confidence without needing agreement. He stays present without offering guarantees. And most importantly, he keeps the emotional authority on his side. Because attraction doesn't grow from answers, it grows from the feeling that the man in front of her knows where he stands, even without explaining it. Once you understand this shift, you stop trying to get it right. You stop negotiating your value with words. And that sets the stage for the next transformation, how reframing the question turns pressure into power.
Psychology shift number 3. Reframe the question. Don't defend yourself. When a woman asks, "What are we?" she's not always asking for information. She's testing who holds the emotional frame. Most men defend. They explain. They justify. And the moment you defend yourself, you position her as the judge. A Stoic man does something different. He reframes. Instead of chasing clarity, he redirects the conversation back to shared experience. We're building something through actions, not labels. Or even more simply, that depends. What do you feel we're building? Now notice what just happened. You didn't avoid the question. You didn't submit to it either. You shifted the weight back to her. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Applied here, it means this: don't react the way weak men do. By reframing, you stay calm, grounded, and unpressured. You invite her to reveal herself instead of scrambling to prove yourself. And in that moment, attraction doesn't disappear. It deepens. Because she's no longer evaluating you, she's feeling you. That leads us directly into the next shift, the role of Stoic silence, and why it carries more weight than words.
Psychology shift number 4. Stoic silence is not emptiness. Here's where most men misunderstand Stoicism. They hear "say less" and think it means becoming cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. So when the pressure rises, they shut down completely. But that's not Stoic silence, that's emotional absence. A Stoic man does not use silence to punish, avoid, or manipulate. He uses silence with intention. When a woman asks a question loaded with emotion, "What are we?" and you don't rush to fill the space, something subtle happens. The silence creates weight. She becomes aware of your presence, your calm, your steadiness. Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." Freedom in this context means freedom from the need to explain yourself. A man who can sit comfortably in silence shows something rare. He is not afraid of tension. He does not need to dissolve it with words. He allows it to exist. And tension, when held by a grounded man, becomes attraction. This is why silence, when done correctly, makes her feel more, not less. She senses that you cannot be cornered, that you are not rushing towards certainty just to feel safe. But there's a difference between holding silence and withdrawing energy. You stay present, you maintain eye contact, your body language remains open and relaxed. You are there, fully, just not performing. That combination is powerful because now, instead of evaluating your answer, she's feeling your emotional gravity. And women don't obsess over men who talk the most. They obsess over men whose presence lingers after the words stop. Once you understand this, you stop fearing silence. You start using it, not as a tactic, but as an expression of self-mastery. And that prepares you for the next shift, where mystery, not explanation, becomes the source of desire.
Psychology shift number 5. Mystery creates desire. Certainty kills it. Here's a question most men never ask themselves. Why does attraction fade the moment everything becomes clear? The answer is uncomfortable. Desire does not live in certainty. It lives in mystery. When a man explains himself too much, defines everything too early, and removes all ambiguity, he believes he's building trust, but emotionally, he's removing tension. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. A Stoic man understands this intuitively. He doesn't rush to lock things down with words. He allows meaning to emerge through experience. Mystery is not deception, it's restraint. It's knowing that not every feeling needs a label, and not every moment needs to be explained. When a woman can't fully predict you, her mind stays engaged. She reflects. She replays moments. She fills the silence with imagination. That's where desire grows. But when you give her everything up front, your intentions, your future plans, your emotional roadmap, there's nothing left for her to discover. And without discovery, attraction stalls. A Stoic man resists this urge, not because he's afraid of commitment, but because he respects the natural rhythm of connection. He knows that meaning deepens when it unfolds slowly. By holding back explanations, he's not withholding affection, he's allowing space for it to breathe. And that space does something powerful. It keeps her emotionally invested without pressure. Once you grasp this shift, you stop trying to convince her with words. You let your presence, consistency, and calm direction do the work instead. And from there, only one shift remains. The final principle that separates men who lose attraction from men who never negotiate their value. Psychology shift number 6. Never negotiate your value with words. This is the final shift, and it's the one most men resist the hardest, because it asks you to let go of something comforting, the need to be chosen through explanation. When a woman asks questions about direction, labels, or certainty, many men feel an urge to secure their value with words. They explain their intentions, they promise consistency, they reassure. But a Stoic man understands something crucial. Value that needs to be negotiated is already weakened. Epictetus said, "If you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential." What's essential here is not convincing, it's living in alignment. A man who knows his worth doesn't argue for it, he doesn't debate it, and he certainly doesn't panic when it's questioned. He shows his value through how he lives, through consistency, through calm direction, through the fact that his life does not collapse around another person's approval. When you stop negotiating your value with words, something interesting happens. She stops asking for reassurance. She starts observing. Your behavior becomes the answer, and behavior speaks louder than any label ever could. This doesn't mean being distant or indifferent. It means being rooted in your standards, rooted in your pace, rooted in the knowledge that you are complete, with or without validation. The Stoic man doesn't fear losing someone who requires him to abandon himself. He understands that real connection can only exist when neither person is bargaining for worth. Once you internalize this shift, that question, "What are we?" loses its power over you completely, because you are no longer trying to be chosen. You are standing as a man who knows exactly who he is. Final reflection: the man who doesn't need to answer. When you look back at everything we've covered, you begin to see the pattern clearly. This was never about avoiding a question. It was never about clever wording, and it was never about controlling another person. It was always about self-command. A Stoic man does not rush to define himself through someone else's expectations. He does not collapse under emotional pressure, and he does not negotiate his worth when it's tested. When a woman asks, "What are we?" she is not just asking for clarity, she is sensing your center. And the man who holds his center, calmly, without fear, becomes someone she feels rather than evaluates. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that a man's power lies in his ability to remain aligned with himself regardless of circumstance. That alignment is what creates presence, and presence is what lasts. You don't need to force certainty, you don't need to rush meaning, and you don't need to explain your value into existence. When you live with discipline, direction, and quiet confidence, your life answers the question for you. And when you stop trying to be chosen, you become the man others want to choose. Thank you for watching Stoic Wisdom today. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect, not on how to respond to women, but on how firmly you stand within yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt pressured to answer before you were ready, or noticed how calm presence changes everything? Subscribe to Stoic Wisdom today for more insights on men, women, and the timeless principles of Stoicism. Until next time, stay grounded, stay disciplined, stay stoic.